So this is the newest member of the ID family from Volkswagen, the ID.7. We're here in Alicante in Spain to have a look at it. And I'm glad this is kind of out of the bag now, because for the last few weeks, I've had to keep this a secret. I haven't been able to talk about the range, the battery size, how big it is. It's nearly 5 meters long. It's longer than the new Hyundai Ioniq 6, and it's firmly in the sedan space of car, which really makes this a really attractive option for people in America who might be interested in the ID.7. But here on Nobby on Cars, we're all about Ireland. You know that by now. So let's jump into the ID.7. Let's check out in huge detail, tell you all you need to know, and prove that Volkswagen listen to people when they complain about their cars on YouTube comments.
This video is in partnership with Nevo.ie, Ireland's only dedicated EV marketplace. Browse every electric vehicle make and model on Nevo.ie. You can view each model in different colours, learn about the specs and features, and watch even more EV reviews. You can compare your favourite models with the handy comparison tool and plan your next trip with our EV Journey Planner. Head over to Nevo.ie today.
So let's just focus on the nose of the car for a second. If you actually look at it kind of side on, there is a little evolution of the Golf, particularly the Mark 8, just a little bit of a nod over the nose, maybe not even intentional. This is the most aerodynamic car Volkswagen have made, EV-wise anyway. So the range is up to 700 kilometers. The idea is you can get into this sedan, drive it to your destination, and not have to worry about charging. And in Ireland, if the range is a true 700 kilometers or even 600, even late 500s, you'll be able to do that without stopping. Performance-wise is 210 kilowatts, that's 281 brake horsepower, so there's plenty of poke. And the one thing we can't confirm today is the price of the car. So let's look at the obvious competitors. The Ioniq 6, as we already mentioned, the BMW i4, an M Sport version of that car is €74,000 in Ireland. Also, you spec up something like an ID.4 GTX and you're into kind of crazy money. So question would be, will the ID.7 begin in late 60s, and will, you know, a high spec Pro version or whatever the equivalent is be well into the late 70s? That's a question for perhaps another day. Legroom is massive. We'll cover all that a little bit later on. There's been some changes to the infotainment system and we'll also get to that, but there's been lots of feedback, and not in a haptic button kind of way, that has actually been taken on board. While the length of the car is just under 5 meters, the distance between the front wheel and the rear wheel, the wheelbase, is just under 3 meters. So there's plenty of rear leg room in the back of the ID.7. For context and comparison, something like a Skoda Superb, if you've ever been in the back of one of them in a taxi on the way home, or you've been a passenger because you have one, you'll know how much rear legroom is in this Superb, and that's kind of comparable for the ID.7. The back of the car is just as aesthetically pleasing. Now, it's hard to see it in the beautiful Spanish sun, but this red strip, you can imagine this in dark, dreary Irish winter days with grey skies, but this is really going to be a car that's going to stand out because of that red strip. And no matter what angle you look at it from the rear, it's just very, very pleasing on the eye. It's taken touches from perhaps the Arteon. In fact, there's an Arteon here today, and it's still a car that looks like it was designed yesterday when you see it. And there's definitely little nods to that kind of design in the car. Electric tailgate is on the car, and actually there's lots of things that Volkswagen say will be standard across the range. It doesn't matter what market you're going to go and buy it in. For example, the 15-inch touchscreen that we'll get to later on, that will be standard on Irish cars. Now the boot, these are still technically pre-production vehicles, so the boot size capacity hasn't actually been confirmed. I'm eyeballing it and I'm saying it's definitely 500 litres, but is it a little bit more? A little bit of space down here. It's quite thin, but you can adjust that for an extra couple of inches. And there is space. There's no front, but there is space down here for your granny cable, your Type 2 charger. You've got access to dropping down the rear seats with the handles inside. Again, we've seen this kind of stuff in Skodas. Again, they've even borrowed from Skoda, like clever things in the boot to hang on with shopping hooks and stuff like that are also here. Parcel shelf, I'd probably half expecting it to be coming this way down across the glass, but they've just gone for the traditional kind of parcel shelf in the back of the ID.7, and that's fine. And you can see even here how kind of low down it is to the ground, which is kind of hard to get used to because we've all been looking at crossovers and SUVs for so long. Now it's time to jump inside, and this is where it gets really, really different, because maybe where the ID3, 4 and 5 has just being open to a little bit of criticism about the finishes, the ID.7 has changed all that. The interior of the ID.7 is where life really has changed. In only a few short years since the release of the ID.3 and ID.4, and it certainly was open to criticism that the plastics were a little bit less than you had been become accustomed to with Volkswagen. Well, that's out the window on the ID.7. The fit and finish of the dashboard, the leathers used, even the lower parts of the console are all better. Now, they have to be better because this car is a premium VW and it is aiming at things like the Model S from Tesla, the Polestar 2. So you can see why Volkswagen at least want to be on a par, if not ahead of the game. And I think that has been achieved. There's touches of the car that remind me of the Passat CC, the Arteon, still haptic buttons on the steering wheel. They are being phased out by Volkswagen, but not in the ID.7. An area that has come in for huge criticism but has been fixed in this car, or at least adapted, is the slider here is illuminated at night time. And don't forget, I'm just going to check it here, I presume it hasn't changed, if you double tap, yes it is, if you double tap your blue and red in your climate, it'll bring you to a shortcut that will start your heated seats, and you just tap it again to reduce how intense that is. Also AGR, which is I suppose a doctor body, is that a way to describe it in Germany? And they approve seats in cars that are of a certain standard for back support and lumbar support and massaging seats. And as I'm talking to you today, there is something going on in this seat. There's parts of the lower part that will massage your pelvis. That's a thing apparently. There are some of the options you can get on the ID.7. This 15-inch screen that is aimed towards the driver in left-hand drive, I presume it'll be slightly aimed towards the driver in right-hand drive, is 15 inches. It is absolutely huge. It doesn't tilt, move or adjust as some of the recent models from Ford have done and stuff like that. It's also in a landscape orientation, not a portrait like the Tesla. But here's the thing that has also changed. There's a constant bar at the top and there's a constant bar at the bottom. If you're familiar with the Volkswagen Touareg that was out a few years ago, the shortcut to your climate control, your heated seats, is permanently there. Yes, you can adjust it with the sliders if you want. Yes, you can use the voice command if you want. Another hack, by the way, if you want to use your voice on your phone and not Volkswagen system, you hold down the voice control for longer. But they do promise us that the voice control system in the ID.7 is the best they've designed before. It can do things, for example, like search for a charger with a higher speed than 50 kilowatt or higher again. Whatever filter you want to do, you can use with your voice. For the first time, if you're using CarPlay and you get a notification on WhatsApp, the whole screen doesn't jam up with your phone notification and your sat nav is gone and you've missed a turn. That doesn't happen anymore. You can also customize up here shortcuts on the permanent top bar that you want to bring to your favorite item. That might be Spotify, it might be a charging location, whatever it is, you can input these systems. There's a lot of configuration that goes on with this infotainment system, and they do promise that this 4.0 version of software, a lot of the bugs are gone. This is a car that really has to impress from the get-go at Volkswagen. It's in a space where there's too much competition. If they want to get into the kind of premium sedan segment, it has to be right from the get-go. So we're all putting our faith in them. Plenty of storage space here. Again, thinking of the American market, for example, but you know, we like our space here in Ireland too. Wireless charging down here, cup holders down here, loads of space. Like there's an arm disappearing into under the armrest. So really is tailored to lots and lots of space. And then there's some touches from the ID range that you will be familiar with, such as the headlight system, the mirror system, the pedals which have to play and pause on them. But from here above especially, it is a vast improvement on the interior of the previous ID models. It's so calm in here because there's still so much space. Your passengers in the back are going to like you. They're going to say, "Hey dad, mom, parent, guardian, keeper, thanks for buying the ID.7 because I've got so much leg room in the back of it." And that's not exaggerating. Those seats are quite far back and there is tons of knee room. The space for your feet, now you could raise those seats up a little bit better to give you a bit more toe room, granted, but it's still very, very comfortable. Armrest is at a good angle. You've got storage space for your phones that will tap in here. There's charging. Again, not a huge difference in the back of this car, to be fair, compared to the ID.4, ID.7. Just a bit more spacious. The leg room is definitely a noticeable thing. 2 USB-Cs down here. You've got your climate control, and that sloping roof still gives you tons of space. Now, this car hasn't got a glass roof.
Sorry, I don't know how to do that yet.
That's okay. It's not in the car anyway. But the glass roof will impede a little bit on headspace, but I think you'll still be okay. And if you want to go for it, usually around about a €1,500 optional extra production car, you'll be able to flood in the light, but it might eat into your headspace ever so much. I think though you'll still be okay. But plenty of room, plenty of space, access to a ski hatch in the back. People get very upset when you leave that detail out of the YouTube video. We don't have a skiing industry in Ireland, but I appreciate you might be watching this video somewhere else. Anyway, ID.7, like a Skoda Superb in the back, just electric, flat floor, grounded vehicle, of course. So I think everyone will be happy out in the back. Plenty of power. It's still rear wheel drive. It's just over 280 brake horsepower or 210 kilowatt of power. It's got enough urgency to it. It's quite a long car. It's similar setup from the MBB platform, such as the ID Buzz. It's that kind of space on interior, that sort of wheelbase. So it really is a very, very spacious car, and it's not a negative thing in the drive. The overhangs are very, very close to the edges of the car. It also has a low centre of gravity, obviously, because this is a sedan. That's another benefit of these cars, which is also the most aerodynamic car Volkswagen have produced in an electric car. And because this isn't a big bulk of mass sailing through the air, it really is a much more efficient design of car when it comes to an EV. And that's something that I wonder, will that make this style of car come a little bit back into flavour? We've all, seen plenty of Tiguans and things like that on the road. Maybe over the last few years, something like a Passat just isn't as common a sight on Irish roads. But I think cars like the ID.7 and things like the Ioniq 6, they are cars that now would suddenly come back into fashion because they look better, but they are more efficient to own and run. Now we're on kind of a lot of descent roads and a lot of hills today, a lot of twisties, not motorway cruising and not sort of slower city driving. So the range is telling me, or the consumption I should say, is hovering around 21, 22 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Important to say that these aren't fully finished vehicles. These aren't the final product. So there's a couple of tweaks that will probably be made to software and finishing touches to the car. It's not even a car that you can order just yet. So these are pre-production vehicles. A lot of stuff is standard on this car. So the augmented head-up display, augmented reality, which is really, really good. We've seen that in other Volkswagen models in the ID range. That'll be standard, as is the 15-inch screen, which is angled slightly towards the driver on the left-hand side. I'm hoping that will obviously turn the other way for those of us at home when we get that. There's 10 different colors for ambient lighting in the car. You can get an optional extra of 30. Dynamic chassis control will be an optional extra in the car also. So really you can go as crazy as you like on the options list in the ID.7, and I think you'll end up with a very, very well spec'd luxury VW if you do that. Of course, we've no idea of prices just yet, and the other Irish journalists with me on the trip today, we've just been speculating, will it be late 60s? Where will the car start? Where we'll end up is very much up to you, because the more of those option boxes that get ticked, obviously. But it is fair to say that hopefully the Irish version of the car will come very well spec'd as standard. That will probably mean you'll get a premium enough price, but if you're kind of getting a lot of options on the car for that slightly expensive price list, then you might be okay with it. Last but not least, the charging speed of the car. It'll do 200 kilowatt charging as standard from the get-go. The flap opens from the bottom. That's different. told you there's some different things about the ID.7. CCS charging port, so your DC charger. Only options for that in Ireland currently are Ionity, that will do 200 kilowatt, or Circle K if they ever get their finger out with the 350 kilowatt chargers that are sitting at the side of forecourts with the guns on the ground in polystyrene. Strange way to do things, but future-proofed in terms of 200 kilowatt charging. You'll get to 80% in about 25-26 minutes at that speed. And again, the charging or the battery capacity is 77, rising to a larger 86 kilowatt hour, which will go on sale after the initial burst of the smaller battery ID.7s. The headlines you need to know about the ID.7 before we go today: 532 litre boot, treble that if you drop the seats down. As long as an ID Buzz, think of that for space context. One of the best looking ID cars they've made, a vastly improved interior, and Volkswagen say a much better user experience when it comes to the infotainment system, and that's really important. Thing I can't tell you again today is how much this car is going to be. Let's hedge our bets in the comments below and have a little look. Thank you for coming this far in the video today. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. As much as this is a really difficult life in Spain on a Monday, in one of the nicest hotels I've ever stayed in, if you'd like to support the channel, buymeacoffee.com/NobbyOnCars. You can tip us there if we helped you get a little bit closer to the ID.7, because let's face it, you're not going to see this in showrooms until the very end of this year, so it's great to have access to the car this early, and if we've helped you put it on your shortlist, you might consider subscribing and supporting the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.